questions are important because this is the best way to be able to channel the conversation. So I'd be happy to hear what do you want to talk about, what topics or ideas you'd like to share.
Actually, we have in our school, Africa Business School, we have 10 PhD students that are allocated to different research clusters. We have entrepreneurship and innovation, finance, business analytics, leadership and organization behavior. So our dear students, you are welcome to ask questions to our guest speaker. So feel free.
You have to ask questions. They're not just welcomed. They have to ask questions.
Okay.
Hi, Adnan. Salam.
Welcome to
I'm
them.
Nisreen. I think you know me. I'm now a PhD student in candidate in ABS, and I'm working on women entrepreneurship. Actually, I want you to share with us, since you are working in the entrepreneurial ecosystem and trying to fix in all the missing parts of the ecosystem in order to help entrepreneurs, and especially social ones. Can you give us an overview about women entrepreneurship in the MENA region, since your action is more more than only in Morocco? Can you share with us an overview about the women entrepreneurship, and especially women entrepreneurship in the social women entrepreneurs? And also, do you think that women in the MENA region go for entrepreneurship as a necessity, means in order to handle some financial issues, or is there any development in the mindset of women entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship in general in the MENA region? Thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions? And Nisreen, nice to hear your voice.
Maybe we can start from this one, because I think that we are used to see the presentation and then we start asking questions related to this presentation. So maybe it's just something to start the discussion, and then.
But this question is more focused on women social entrepreneurs, and I'd rather, as you're talking about business school, you need to be ready for disruptions. So I'd rather have two other comments.
Okay.
To get more a broader perspective, because the better questions we have, the more in-depth analysis we can get.
Okay. The floor is yours, guys.
And a bit crazy, so you should also get used to that. Any other volunteers? We have around 18 people, 20-ish. Why are you here? What do you want to learn from this session?
If I can have another one. You are the co-founder of Insights. Can you give us the motivation behind this initiative, and what are actually the achievements of this initiative since the beginning of it till now?
Okay. Any other volunteer? As researchers, you should be up on two questions, as I assume that most of the audience is research students.
Yes. Hi, Mr. Adnan. Could you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I think you know me very well. I will represent myself, Ahmed Zahlan. I've been in the program of Orange Corner.
Okay.
And as right now I'm a researcher in business analytics. So my question is related a little bit about my projects and research. So it's more why or how can we convert a researcher project to a real entrepreneur work or on the market.
Okay, good. Thanks. We can. Yes, there's somebody on the chat. Somebody wants to say something on the chat. Yes, Yusra would like to share something, or is it like a regular? Okay. So I'll who researched, so those who don't know me, who has researched me before this session? Who looked me up? If you can I see raise of hands? Okay, not very reactive, guys. Okay, okay, well, those who don't know me. Okay, well, okay, so everyone, 1, 2, okay. So this conversation should be very interactive. And I don't like lectures because I don't feel that lectures really get to the point because they are usually one-sided. But as I see that interaction is not very present, I'll start answering some of the questions. So the first one, so my focus is not really on women entrepreneurs. So I cannot give any data on the situation on women entrepreneurship in the region, or even.
Sorry, Adnan. Actually, I'm not asking for data. I'm asking for of your point of view and like thanks to your experience, what are your comments on this? Not really data.
Okay, thanks. Thank you for precising. And that's also why I love questions to be asked, because you can brief them. So a bit of a background. I hope that you looked me up. So I've been interested in entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship for more than 10 years now. And really, how can entrepreneurship participate in creating solutions and systemic solutions to improve conditions of not just in Morocco, but in many parts of the world. So I've started working a lot with, I discovered that Morocco has an inspiration problem. And what I'm saying by an inspiration problem is that in our current culture, taking action is not something that is, I would say, organic. There's a lot of apathy. There's a lot of waiting for assistance. There's a lot of, I would say, trying to get by just by proxy means and other ways. And of course, if you don't understand anything, just please hit me up. So this culture is like really, I would say, emphasized when you're a young person with their parents. The only, I would say, option for the parents is to get a regular job, which traditionally was in governments or in banks, like things that are kind of secured. And this is valid for both men and women. And then, I say the last 6-7 years, there's been finally in Morocco this trend to initiate people to start projects and to dive into entrepreneurship. And here I'm really kind of separating generations, because I would say the older generation, they came from a situation where the country was in a post, I would say, independence, I would say, context. So there was a lot of building. This is why you have all these kind of wealthy families that made business out of, I would say, trade. And up until, like, we have very few industries that are led, let's say, by and driven by innovations. I can name just 1 or 2 companies like HPS and Asban and others. So the context in Morocco is very family oriented, which means if you're born into a family traditionally that is, I would say, has business acumen, so the kids also would be expected to someday run the company. But if you go to the regular Moroccan person, this idea of doing a project is not into the mindset. So you're expected to study, get a job, get a loan, and then so on and so forth. So at this stage, it's complicated for both. And why it's also more, I would say, complicated for women is, and when you live in an environment when there is no inspiration and there is no role models, it's very hard to be able to get by, because you would not say that, oh, I can do it. I don't see myself in the other person. So since a few years ago, where some programs were started to inspire women and inspire younger generations to start projects, we could see that there is a trend coming. And I think Nisrin mentioned the idea of necessity. I think it's important to mention that entrepreneurs based out of necessity are usually livelihood entrepreneurs. But entrepreneurs that are based on will and interest and demand-driven entrepreneurs are the ones creating value. So in Morocco, most of programs that we have, especially traditional ones, are the ones kind of based on necessity. And I think it's very wrong arguments when you hear things like, how can entrepreneurship solve the unemployment problem? It's like you have a problem, you want to try and try something to fix it, and then you just shove people into an oven and say, yalla, become entrepreneurs, which definitely is, it is an approach, but it doesn't, it's not really sustainable. So the challenge for Moroccans now is to be able to inspire generations of people who want to become entrepreneurs, especially women, because because we're not like, in practice, equal opportunities are not always there. Like, for example, if a female entrepreneur wants to get pregnant and to have a baby, it's very complicated in Morocco to do both things at the same time, because we don't have the safety nets, we don't have the social structures for that, or even the family structures to be able to embody this. So we have a lot of systemic issues that hinders the potential. And also because both male and female are, I would say, supposed to get a livelihood and get a job at the beginning of their careers. So the opportunities for risks are also very little. Of course, we have exceptions, but these exceptions do not confirm the norm. So we need to be able to create a system where we can inspire more people to be able to try as beginning as early as possible when they are in high school, to understand that yes, you can create a project, you can create your own livelihoods, learn how to make money, because in Morocco we don't learn how to make money. We are at a situation where we are faced to have money, but we don't learn how to make it. So the earlier we can get it, the earlier we can create something that would work and that would generate an added value. And the third thing is creating the safe space and the programs that are going to help people, provide them with the support, whether it's psychological, emotional, financial, logistical, and so on. So these are many of the, I would say, the triggers that hinders the full capacity of women and the full capacity of entrepreneurs in Morocco to be able to thrive. And one thing to say is that when even you have these type of programs that are meant to support entrepreneurs, I'm talking mostly about government programs, they think of it from a debt perspective, not from a value creation or from a risk-taking creation. And this is also not part of our DNA, the whole idea of risk and creating. So I think that the challenge is systemic, and that you need to work at the same time with families, because I worked with many female entrepreneurs, and some of them had issues with the families. It's not that the families don't want them to do the project, it's that they have to support the families. And in some contexts, they have to get early on jobs, to get married, because of it offers some type of financial stability. And other times, because the families don't feel that it's not safe, because Morocco is not very safe for most people, especially for women. So to be able to go out and be independent and not fear for your physical safety, that's also part of the systemic issues. So we cannot dissociate this idea of female entrepreneurship just from, I would say, a theoretical perspective, because it involves public safety, it involves infrastructure, it involves lights in the street. I was earlier this month, in June, in a project on how to make the city of Rabat safe and secure for women and girls. And things that came out of it was like public lighting and security. So these are the things that I would say, plus all the rest of the issues that are related to access to market, access to funding, access to skills, access to capital, all of that. So that's kind of what can I say on this. So what's the motivation and the drive between BIAM size? Honestly, it's a very complicated question, because as I was saying, Morocco is not I would say is a complex situation where on the surface you think that everything is good, everything is fine, but you just dig deeper and then you understand the tremendous challenges that we have. And I think COVID was a very good wake-up call to show how fragile our ecosystem is. So a couple of many years ago, when I personally discovered the concept of social entrepreneurship, or basically how you can ally social impact and economic, I would say, profitability and business models, and I was like, we can create something that is valuable. So when I got introduced to these concepts 10 years ago or more, And I was like looking for these people in Morocco that are solving these problems. And I can tell you the results are very thin because of all the issues I mentioned earlier on, the mindset, the culture, francophone ideas, and so on. So I took on to myself as the first challenges to be able to how to get and inspire people. That if there is a problem, you also have the right to fix it. You don't just delegate the problem to somebody else. It's the famous "Mashi ana ya huma." Who is hna? Who is huma? And these are things that are very important because the language is very also important. And in Morocco, if you want to say entrepreneur, you would say muqawil. And if you go to the street and you ask somebody what is a muqawil, shkun muqawil, and they would say it's like a real estate, like a bnai tashron, somebody who has money. So entrepreneurship is not linked to idea creativity. And language is very important because if you go on from Algeria onwards, they don't use the term muqawil. They use the term initiator, ra'id amal or ba'id amal, which is also very important for the psychology. So the first couple of years, I've only been just traveling around and talking to people on how to get people to understand that these things are possible. And also worth mentioning that in Morocco, there's also a systemic issue that when people don't know something, they say it doesn't exist. And I think for me, it's one of the toughest issues, cancers that we don't see in our society. So long story short, they brought up a lot of people, and then we decided to create an organization whose mission is to find entrepreneurial innovative solutions to every social challenge. And the every part is because if we don't provide systemic solutions, we're going to fall again into the same issues over and over and over again. So just to be able to connect the dots and make sure that people understand these things. And if you just go Google us, and you find a website and so on, you've seen tons of initiatives and programs that we've launched over the years, and many of their results. I can just name a few. So we've launched what we call incubation programs. But our incubation programs, what people should know is that incubation is not doing your job. Incubation is just providing you with links. So we've supported like hundreds of projects. But of course, it depends on the entrepreneurs. So we've had some very good entrepreneurs who are now started projects from zero and been able now to generate enough cash flow to be able to survive and create value. So there's a company called Verdater that works on agriculture that is launched by researchers, which is a link to the question of Ahmed. Like there's nothing that stops a researcher to become an entrepreneur, just their minds and their brains and the perspectives. So, and I just spent the last 3 days with UM6P talking with researchers on this. So it's a cognitive bias that comes from the whole idea that traditional academia, Francophone academia is like research trust. There's nothing that stops you from doing both. And of course, you need to work in teams, which is also not part of a culture to know how to work in teams. So we've had a lot of entrepreneurs that have been able to create sustainable jobs. And it's complicated. It's because as the old African proverb that says you need a village to raise a child, and you need a whole, I would say, system to raise an entrepreneur. It's not just one person solo flying up. We've also done a lot of programs in schools, and like with 15, 14-year-olds to inspire them to understand life and how to create their own solutions and create their own needs, and also working with parents on getting the kids to choose their own orientation and to choose their own careers. We have also countless of individuals who've changed their careers and changed their lives because they've now been able to understand what they want to do. But nutshell, these things are very complicated because we are still a very small organization. We don't have a lot of resources. We're doing as much as we can, and we wish to have more resources and more people to work with us to be able to capture the impact, measure what we do. Because when you measure it better, you can improve it better. So it's a kind of a lifelong cycle where we find a need, we launch a solution. So we found the need that a lot of people don't have access to markets. We created a solution that is Wulush. There's a platform, but that platform is not us. It's the culture. It's how we get Moroccans to shift the thinking from saying to bring the cash. And this is not us. This is also part of the culture that we need to change. So what we're mainly doing is facilitating, creating dots and contacts so that people can shift the way they think and shift the way they operate. We've launched concepts of spaces. There's one called Their Space in Rabat, another one in Saleh called Better Center. And these spaces are kind of agnostic spaces where people come and learn everything from, I would say, how to do knitting to blockchain, because we believe that systemic innovation comes when you bridge all the gap. And we received hundreds and thousands of people coming over, and the demand is huge. We just recently launched a program called Mincom on social innovation for the future, where we had hundreds of people focusing on issues in the regions, whether you're talking about food security, environmental protection, access to quality education, food scarcity, and things like this, where we do as much as possible to connect. But again, I think I'll finish this part with the statement that I like, a quote that I like, which says, "You can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink." So my personal mission is to empower as many people as possible to be able to understand and fix their own problems. But again, you got to do what you got to do. You can't force people to do things that they don't want. And another saying that I like, that you can't learn how to swim by reading a book. You have to jump. So if somebody pushes you and you're not ready mentally, you may drown. But if you're ready mentally, you're going to make the effort. And I think that's the mindset of how we're also building this ecosystem, by working with universities, researchers, entrepreneurs, wannabe entrepreneurs, government officials sometimes want to think about an issue and find and develop ways to do that. I'll be happy to take any other questions if you have them. You are very quiet, researchers, and this is not a good sign, my friends.
We are beginners in research, so just try to.
But still, no, questions
I
and advice. Questions are very important, and questions are regardless of your age.
Okay. No, I'm not talking about the age. I'm not that young. I'm talking about actually starting the journey of research. I have another question related to what you have said at the end. You've talked about the mindset, entrepreneurial mindset. Do you think that there are some actions or some tools or things that people can use in order to develop this mindset, or is it something inner?
Well, you can join one of our programs and you can see that in 2 weeks you can have different mindsets. So actually, most of our training and educational programs are only about mindsets. So we have a program, for example, for professionals, it's a year-long program. It's like a master's, where people learn this whole idea of how to take action. So we have a lot of tools and a lot of resources that we use to that. If we talk with young people, we do problem-solving workshops and critical thinking programs. So these are also tools that we use to be able to infuse this mindset. Of course, the older you are, the more time it will take you to shift. And it's not, of course, you can be born with a positive mindset. And here, a positive mindset is a mindset of inquiry, to ask questions. Why should I do this? How does it work? And then you can learn it or unlearn it, because you have the learning, unlearning, and relearning. They're all processes that we use. And one thing that I've learned from my life is that in some countries, like in Morocco, if you want to change the mindset of someone, you have to shock the person, what we call shock therapy or reality check. You can't change the mindset by saying, "Oh, you should go and do a project. Oh, you should do that." No, you have to shock people so that they understand the depth and the complication that what the situation you have. In other contexts, it's more, I would say, it's easier because people, when they've been brought up, when they were younger, they're brought up to ask questions and to say, "Oh, there is something, I'm going to fix it." So it is something that we can really do, and it's really feasible. It just takes the right combination of mindset, skills, attitude, and communication to be able to frame it properly.
Actually, I just want to share an experience with you. Within the UNCXP, we have developed a program called Mini MBA in order to work on the developing the mindset of entrepreneurship and giving some tools like the basic tools like business model, canvas, etc., to coders in order to encourage them to start businesses. During the sessions, they were so interactive, and they have started thinking and talking about projects, started the ideation process, founded an idea, started working on it. And 1 week after after like the end of the sessions, since we are waiting for the demo day, when I talk with those entrepreneurs to be, they are all doubting about their projects, and they have lost all the interest and the mindset we have worked with them on it. So I don't know if it's common or we have done it wrong, or
I don't. Like there is a famous expression in Moroccan Arabic which is "ضرب حديد محل سخون." So it's very important when you do an inspiration process to continue. An inspiration should not just be do a project. So I personally do not use the tools, like the whole idea, business models, all of that, because it's completely useless where people don't have the right mindset and attitude. So the challenge is how to keep people and challenge them. And it's important to know that it is not going to work with everyone, because the purpose is not to turn people into entrepreneurs, definitely not. But the purpose is to create a spark. And the spark can be ignited like on the day, or can be ignited 10 years later. You know, it's like you're planting seeds and you're waiting for a flower to blossom. That's how human brains work. And like, and sometimes people need to go into a situation. I've met like thousands of people who told me that, you know, said, now we've met you like a distance, like we hated what you said, we hated whatever, and now we can relate to it because we met 1, 2, 3. This happens. So you cannot just say that it's not algorithm where like I do this, I do that. Not really. Any other questions, comments from anybody?
we have questions.
I have a question. So,
yeah.
I'm Kautar. I'm a PhD candidate in Africa Business School. I have a question related to how can you, as an actor in social and innovation entrepreneurship, help governments like to better enhance the entrepreneurial ecosystem of Morocco? How do you do that, or how can you do that?
The line was a bit cutting, so I couldn't hear properly the question.
Yeah, I'll ask again. So how as an actor in the social and innovation entrepreneurship, how do you help governments in like a better like?
Are you talking about Moroccan government?
Yeah,
you don't have government. Sure, you don't have government. Also, when you talk about government, you have to understand what you're talking about. Are you talking about local government, which is municipalities? Are you talking about, like in the case of Morocco, are you talking about executive government, which is العمالات and exterior services? Are you talking about national government, regional government? So it's not the same thing. Like, I personally don't use these concepts. I come with the idea that we have a problem we have to fix. Like, and very a lot of people would say we have an employment program, we have to fix it. That's the entry point. You don't go to them and say, oh, we have this social innovation, blah blah blah. Like, people don't understand these things.
Yeah, I know, but like, in which way? What is the best way, like to have?
There is no best way. It's case by case. It really depends on your stakeholder, and the whole idea is focused on the need. Let's say we have an issue with I don't know, like deforestation. So the pitch line is, how can we solve the deforestation issue in, let's say, in Drata Filalt or in Rashidia or whatever, through a new way, and then you launch the process. You don't do the opposite. You see what I mean? I could talk about education. How we can improve access to quality education for kids age 10 in the region of Azilat. So, and I think as you're doing business, you should all be aware of the design thinking methodology, which is a way to frame questions. So when you talk to someone, you don't tell them, I have a solution for you. You frame it as a question. How might we do one, two, three? And this is the best way to be able to engage, but still is very complicated because there's a lot of old school thinking. There's a lot of conservatism. I'm not very good at working with governments because I say whatever I think. And a lot of government officials and institutions don't like to be told that things are not as great as they seem. So that's where my personal focus is on how to get results working, and then through the results, get people to come and see that, oh, this is working. So it's like it's reverse engineering. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Dr. Lina George is asking, how do you think entrepreneurship would help migrant workers post-COVID?
Well, that's it. That's a tricky question. Like, there is an economic recession for everyone, and this economic recession is not discriminating between whether migrant, documented, undocumented, or local. That's number one. Number two, like Morocco is also in one of the countries that also had already a fragile economy, very, 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 very fragile. And this economy, of course, discriminates. If you speak French, you don't speak French, where you come from, what you studied, and so entrepreneurship is not going to help anyone. Entrepreneurship is not helping. Entrepreneurship is a mindset and skills. It's like you tell me, how can biology help someone? So the challenge is how to get these target audience, with the migrant workers or so on, to either provide them with skills to be able to create their own jobs, create their own projects, or provide them with skills to be able to do projects with others. So that's basically the baseline that you can do with everyone. And then it's again, and I think that I'm not one of the people that sees entrepreneurship as a solution. I think this is a false statement. Entrepreneurship is not a solution. It's like you say engineering is good or bad. Engineering is a tool. Entrepreneurship is a tool itself. And it depends on how you use it. You're going to frame the type of solutions you can get. So by understanding the depth and the scale of the skills, you can create. And of course, an entrepreneurial mindset, for me, is a must for everyone. Because if you have an entrepreneurial mindset, which means you're always going to seek for solutions, you're always going to provide problem-solving attitudes and mindsets, and you're going to create something that would work. The problem is when you don't have an entrepreneurial mindset and you are waiting for somebody to provide aid or care for you, whether you're a migrant worker or whatever, that's where the things are going to collapse. And in Morocco, there are a lot of programs for migrants, especially the GIZ, the German corporations. All of their money almost goes into migrants. And there are a lot of like a AMAP and other organizations in Morocco that has programs for migrants. Of course, they have to be documented and so on. If they're not documented, you should go to UNHCR to be able to get their papers. But again, it's always about these famous classes. So what type of skills, what type of tools they need to get to be able to create either their jobs or products, or learn how to do it. Thanks. Any other questions?
I think that we are done with the questions. Can we go to the next part of it? Can we go to
what?
To the presentation?
There's no for me. It's a whole conversation. There's no. I'm not coming.
Okay.
I did not come here to give you a lecture, because lectures are useless. Because if I'm invited here to talk to you about field experience and how things work, and now if we've noticed, we've talked about like 10 different topics. So if anybody would like to, I don't know, dig deeper into one topic or another, I'll be very happy to do so.
Okay. So let's talk about your experience with the Wuluj. Since I think in the beginning it was a crowdfunding platform, but because of the
same thing, it hasn't changed a bit. It has not changed a bit.
No, I mean legally, we it's not crowdfunding. It's not
We
is not
never,
legal in Morocco, but you have found like a
yeah, we never,
way to make it.
yeah. So Wurush, we never use the term crowdfunding, never, since day zero.
Mm-hmm.
So we always, and I hope that people Google this because you have to check this. And again, as researchers, you always to fact check and get things.
No,
So,
actually, wait, just a second. What I wanted to say is because the idea of the beginning was finding something in order to help entrepreneurs to get money to start their projects. And since it's illegal,
it's
you
not illegal.
didn't.
This is not illegal.
It's illegal, actually.
It's not illegal. So what is illegal in Morocco is for NGOs to do public collection of money. This is what is illegal.
And if you are the one, I mean, still
Our
didn't create your. Mhm.
Our company, they say it's very legal. There is nothing that stops you.
As a company, you can get money without sending products.
You can send product. The product can be an ice cream. It can be a poster.
Yes. Okay.
Cancel service.
You can do anything you want. So people should understand that when you say legal, not legal, you should really understand what are the baseline in the process. So when you sell let's say when you sell a training,
Mm-hmm.
can you sell it online?
Yes.
Okay. Can people pay for it online?
Yes.
That's an example. So what so we always so Wurush started from the premise how we can have people who have projects have access. It's not helping. Have access to resources, markets, or funding. And the way we designed it is because in Morocco, NGOs cannot do that, but companies can. So we created a company that offers this type of service.
Okay, so it wasn't for you. It wasn't an entrepreneurial opportunity that you have found, like seen, and you jumped on. It was only like you wanted to start an NGO, and then it switched to entrepreneur, right?
No. Don't
Why?
confuse things. So the M-Size is the NGO that was founded years before Wurush.
Okay, so Wuluj actually is a project founded by M-Size.
Exactly, of course.
Okay.
Of course. Everything. So Wuruj is a company owned 100% by M-Size.
Okay.
And that company, like so, the first service that we provided was a payment platform,
Mm-hmm.
like Jumia.
Yes.
It's a payment platform, but the difference is that the target audience was projects that were not yet in the market. And the logic was the logic of pre-sales. It's like when you go to a shop, like traditionally in Morocco, you go to a tailor and you give them advance.
Mm-hmm.
So why do you give advance to a tailor?
Yeah, in order to get your order once finished. Actually, can you give us or share with us data regarding Wuluj? How many projects were funded on Wuluj and how many of them were successful? Or like what was the impact of Wuluj?
So again, you need to understand context. The regular Moroccan person does not go straight away to buy things online. That's number one. Number two, a regular Moroccan person is not going to buy or support anything online that they don't know. So we have to understand these things. So the first launch was in 2016. So Wuruj is not new, for those who don't know. So the first launch, we got some investment and we created the platform and we tried with 4 or 6 projects. But we tried it from, I would say, a Western approach, which is basically you get the projects online and then the projects are going to do their work and then people will come, which did not work because Even though we had a community, a lot of people from our community said, well, bring us the product and we'll buy it. And well, we're like, the whole purpose is the opposite, because the products are not there that you need to buy it first. So in the first year, we had to learn the hard way that the culture is what's not there. We've relaunched again in 2018. We revamped the platform to make it more appealing and more attractive. We got more projects, I think 10, 15 projects. And we've noticed that we thought at that time that if we get the project as, I would say, appealing, it will attract people. But we've noticed that entrepreneurs should do the job, because if you check any other platform in the world, the platform is not the one that is attracting customers. It's the entrepreneurs. So we found that in Morocco, that most entrepreneurs do not do their promotion. They wait for the people to come and buy. And if they do promotion, they do it like once a day or once like a week. So in the second version, we've had 2 campaigns that were funded 100%. Why? Because behind these 2 campaigns, like one raised like 70,000 dirhams, I think. Another one raised around 100,000 dirhams or something like that, or 60,000. So the success factor was that, not because of Wuluj. The success factor was because the people behind the campaign did a very active, like a street marketing and door-to-door every day, because Wuluj is just a platform. So in 2020, we relaunched for the 3rd time, because again, unfortunately in Morocco, we don't have a lot of resources for this. So we always bootstrap. So in 2020, with COVID, we decided to relaunch again, and we launched a new service for NGOs who want to provide access to services like providing food and so on. And we decided to give all these services for free. So just in this month, in 2 months, around 400,000 dirhams were raised. Again, it's not Wuluj that raises the money. The concept of these platforms is the projects that raise the money. So we had campaigns who have reached 100% of the target because the campaign was done properly, and others who reached 0. And you can go on the website yourself. I'm not sure if I can share. Hasna, can you give me the access to share?
Yeah, you have already the access.
Okay.
You can do it.
Who Googled Wuluj? Who checked on the website Wuluj while I was talking before I share? Can you raise your hands?
Me.
I'm not talking about you, Nisreen. Not you. I'm talking about the others.
I checked the website of the Moroccan Center of Innovation and Social Entrepreneurship.
Wuluj. Who checked Wuluj? Raise your hands if you've checked Wuluj since I started talking about it. Okay, not many. I'm very cautious, and I'm very surprised, and I'm very worried. Anyway. So because I'm in a nice mood today, I'll show you. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
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 So that's the website. If you go on wuluj.com, then you see fund families or fund projects. In here you have a lot of different campaigns. And so Wuluj is just a platform. So you have campaigns, for example, like distributing 200 food baskets. They've raised like 120% of their money. Others 90%, 30%, 40%, and so on and so forth. Like also this 100%. So these are all projects done by NGOs, organizations to fund. And if you go inside, that's why I said please check. If you open this one, there is always something in exchange. So we give bracelets. And the bracelets like I have Mandar. It's just something that is symbolic. If you see it. And then you have like an online course and things like yoga course and things like that. And then if you scroll even below, and you see some startup campaigns. For example, these ones, they provide edible cutlery. So these are spoons. So if you go inside the campaign, blah, 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 that's the products, and then you can buy goods and so on. So that's how it works. So Rouge is a platform, but all these platforms depend mostly on what people do. So for the last 2 months, we've been able to collect around $40,000 from around 120 contributors.
Okay, so if I got it right, since you are a company, you can give the money to the NGOs without any problem. Okay, it's like a subvention.
Exactly, but because in Morocco we don't have legal status, we have to pay taxes and VAT on it.
Okay, so actually, I thought that the difference between Small & Co and Wuluj was that Wuluj was specialized on social enterprises and Small & Co was actually...
No. Small & Co was number one. It was not in Morocco. It was in France.
Yes.
Yes, because you cannot do the service here. And two, it was mostly to donation. There was no de facto something providing exchange. But Small & Co was if you wanted, was a prototype.
Okay.
I see Umayma raising her hand. You have any questions, Umayma?
No, actually, it's just about the Wuluj site, because I know the site before, yeah.
Any other questions? Please use me as much as I'm here. As long as I'm here.
Did you heard my question?
No, I could not hear it.
Okay. What is your action plan for the...
The sound is breaking. It's really, I cannot.
Okay, now can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. My question was, what is your action plan as an actor of the social entrepreneurship? What is your action plan in the post-COVID period, like the two coming days, since a lot of people have lost their jobs and there is a lot of issues in health, etc. What is actually your action plan for the next coming years?
We are in the same situation because most of our partners and our clients also are in recession. So our action plan is survival. Of course, we should not forget that we don't receive any support from governments. We're not eligible to any of the plans that regular institutions are receiving. And that's something very worried, because if you look at Germany, I don't know if it's a far-fetched example, but in Germany, they've allocated around like 10 billion euros for the sector because they know how important it is. So for us, and for us, I think it's not new because we've never really depended on anybody. And our obsession is on impact. And because most of the people who work with us are also obsessed with impact, so we're able to stretch. So we have people who accepted a cut in their salaries. We have people who accepted to defer payments because we want to keep the projects running and so on, so that we keep on sustaining. And the business model is going to change because less clients are going to be available, less money is going to be available. So we continue what we do, because what we do is focused on like addressing the inclusive issues and addressing. We've been talking about innovation in healthcare for years, before people talking about, it's important to fix healthcare system. So we're still doing as much as we can, but our resources are very, very, very thin. So our priorities is survival and growth. And why I mentioned that we're doing a lot of things internationally, because most of our partners and clients are international. So that's why we are now doubling efforts to grow internationally to be able to sustain Morocco, because sadly Morocco does not fund Morocco. And that's the sad truth. And it's easier to get support and money and funding from outside than to receive it from inside. So and also another obsession is to do whatever we can to keep the projects that we are supporting alive, because they've also been very affected for some of them. So So I think our difference between other organizations, we have to think for ourselves and think for others, which makes us crazy one.
Okay. And in your point of view, what is the most urgent action that the government or the ecosystem, entrepreneurial ecosystem actors need to do, and need to adopt or to handle in order to not get worse than the actual situation?
Well, when you say ecosystem, you know better, Nisreen, that there is not really an ecosystem because people have and died because there was nothing that was done for years.
Mm-hmm.
It's not new. And those who stayed
Yes.
are very little, very few. And I'm not talking about the government-backed programs. I'm talking about the private one, the independent ones, like ourselves.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Like my peers are closing every day.
Mm-hmm.
Every day. Every day. So, and it's not because there is not enough resources. So, like, if you look at the program that the government launched in January, the famous Intelaka program,
Yes.
it came from a wrong understanding that entrepreneurship is supported by debt. Who on earth still in the 21st century still thinks that just throwing money with business plans on paper and giving people 2% interest rates are going to support job creation? It is going to support those who are already in business, not the ones who want to start. Because if you don't support them, chances for them to die is 90%. And it's been done 20 years ago with Muqawalati. It's not new.
Mm-hmm.
And done 30 years ago with Kid Entrepreneur. So, so I think and again, now that's my fight now. I think for years is to do as much as I can to shift the paradigm that, please, if you want to talk about food security, let's get every region to think about food security in their region and get people and young people to fix the problem in your region. Don't import the solution from elsewhere. If you want a technology platform, train people, give them the skills, give them the access to resources to be so that they can build them themselves. And now we're just seeing now, like it's like subhanAllah, people are saying, oh, we have to strengthen the local consumption, we have to strengthen the local production. Like a lot of people have been saying this for years. So, and when I read yesterday, 2 days ago, the new financial bill, which was interesting, but still the same paradigm. And I'll show you another example of the new financial bill in Tunisia, because Tunisia have been supporting entrepreneurs and they've been leading on the entrepreneurship forefront, like for masses. And I'll show you what they did in Tunisia. I don't know if you can see the whole thing.
Still not.
1 second. Okay, so I can share with you the article. That's the article from the Ministry of Finance. So one of this is a full article. So one of their main priorities is to launch a fund for startups. You see that, right? And then focusing on employabilité des chercheurs. Like all of that is really kind of, and then the full interview is there. We talk all about the incentives that they've been doing for supporting entrepreneurs and startups. Because in Tunisia, they've realized that it's not something that is nice to have. It's a must-have for the growth of the country and the sustainability of it. So we still have a lot of things to do.
Okay. Umayma, I think that Umayma has a question. And Iman.
Anybody? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, hello, Mr. Adnan. Welcome at Africa Business School. I'm Iman Lukili, a PhD candidate at Africa Business School. My question is about the legal status or the people, the Mormon people attraction towards these type of
Iman,
entrepreneurship. Can you hear me?
Your line is breaking. I can't.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes, probably.
Okay. So my question is, how can Moroccans adopt social infrastructure since there is no legal status and there is no, let's say, profit that people can gain from social interaction? So how can we attract? How can we attract people to go for this and adopt of
I'm sorry.
okay.
Your question, please. I cannot hear it. I could not hear it.
Adnan,
I
I
will-
think I've heard the question. Can you write it, Iman? And she's talking about incentives. She's talking about the legal
Yes.
status of social entrepreneurship in Morocco. How can we attract people and encourage people to do social entrepreneurship since they don't have any advantage doing it? I think this is what I got from her. She will write her question and.
Sure. In Morocco,
Yes, exactly.
there is no shortage of people who want to launch projects. We have more people without any looking for incentives wanting to launch projects. So if we had incentives, we would have 10 times more survival rates. We don't have an issue of demand because people who are launching social enterprises all over the world, they don't launch it because there is a legal incentive. They launch it because they want to fix a problem. They're not opportunity entrepreneurs who are seeking just where to get the financial gain. So if we had the legal structures and the legal principles, we would be able to do more. Like another example. So I was mentioning for Wuluj that we have to pay VAT taxes and taxes and income taxes on the money we collect. If we're able to don't have to pay these taxes, we'll be able to give more money to people. That's an example. So yes, so legal structures are important to be able to create an enabling framework, but we cannot wait until it comes. We have to push because nothing has come from waiting.
Thank you very much.
I think there are no more questions.
I think you should all thank Nisreen for asking all the questions.
Yeah.
She should receive a prize.
Actually, the prize was the answers. Thank you, Adnan.
Like anytime, marhaba. And I really recommend you guys to be able to open up to questions and so on, because that's the best way to be able to frame your thinking. And I'm available anytime you want.
Thank you, Mr. Adnan Adiwi. So I think we will wrap up and finish our session for today. On behalf of the Africa Business School, we thank you for serving as speaker for today's webinar. And it was very, very insightful. Your comments and insights were very inspiring for our PhD students. I think they got a lot of knowledge and and comments. So I hope it will help them and get ahead with their projects. So thank you, and we hope to get to see you in our campus soon. So thank you, Mr. Adnan.
Anytime, at your service.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adnan, for your insightful presentation.
And I hope you guys ask more questions in the future. Yeah, bye bye. Take care.
Hope
Thank
to.
you. Bye. Thank you. Bye, everyone. Bye.